I'm Brian Goldfinger from Goldfinger Injury Lawyers. We'd like to wish you and your family a happy and a safe holiday season. Everyone here at my law firm hopes that you don't need our services, especially this time of year. Visit goldfingerlaw.com.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. I'm your host, William Loom, speaking to you after the Toronto Raptors defeated the Orlando Magic on a game winner by Danny Green. That's right, the most unlikely player on the team, perhaps, to get a game winner. Danny Green, 6'1", I think it was like a 15-footer, 12-footer, some short jump shot on the baseline with 2.4 seconds left. The Raptors inbound to him. He hits the jumper, and the Raptors beat the Orlando Magic by a score of 93-91 on the road at what is the arena called nowadays? Amway Center, the DeVos family's haunted house. I mean, I don't know. The DeVos family is not a very esteemed group, but regardless, yeah, I mean, look, it was a tight game for sure. You would argue that it shouldn't have been that tight. I would say it was a very frustrating game just because the Raptors kind of have the same issue over and over again, which is that they can't shoot threes. Like, it is just, it's comical at this point. It really is. The Raptors had 9 threes on 34 attempts, which comes out to 26%. The Raptors, dating back to, last Monday, have shot 48 of 163 from three. Now, you're just not going to win in the modern NBA shooting like that from three. And it's not a surprise that the Raptors lost 3 of those games and won 2 of them. They shot better against Chicago, but I mean, again, like I mentioned in that Chicago podcast, that was basically a G League team that they were playing against. Seriously, they had 56 points through 3 quarters. So the Raptors have really struggled with their 3-ball, and that's basically, not the only reason, because I think defensively they're a little bit suspect, and obviously they could have improved their, late game execution against Boston and against, Detroit as well. But really, it's the 3-ball, and the Raptors, tonight got out to a great start. Were really focused and energized. I thought they really responded well to, a practice on Monday. They come out today. They were really spirited. I think one of the things we were talking about throughout in practice, and when you watch those post-game interviews, all of them came out talking about execution and communication. Communication was so important to the Raptors, and I could see why. They gotta talk. They really have to talk. Like when you lose a game like that to the Pistons, where Reggie Bullock gets free right under the basket because nobody talked and called out the switches, that comes down to execution, and it comes down to communication, and one thing leads to the other. And I think communication has just not quite been there defensively for the Raptors. They have it in spurts, and they have great moments, and I think the Raptors have done pretty well defensively all season. I think they were 6th heading into this game, and after this performance, you would think you'd probably improve up to 5th or something like that. I'll have to double check the numbers, but still, the Raptors were pretty solid defensively, I thought, for most of the game. Like Nick Nurse said after the game, they played solid defense for 3 quarters. The first quarter, Orlando Magic shot 5 of 17 for 17 points. Second quarter, 20 points, and the fourth quarter, they only had 16 points, in which point the Magic opened the quarter, I think, shooting 1 of 11 with a couple of turnovers there too. And so the Raptors, defensively were solid, except for the third quarter, where I thought they really came apart defensively. And I think, again, the culprit there is lack of communication, right? Because what they kept getting burned on were off-ball screens. And the biggest key to guarding off-ball screens is being able to communicate that people know where everyone is, so that no one sort of overreacts and overhelps, or, even worse, underhelps, and someone gets a clear lane to the bucket or open 3. And that's basically what happened in the third quarter when the Magic had 38 points. But, defensively, I think the Raptors are really solid. And again, you got to credit Nick Nurse a little bit in this win. A, for the play calling at the end, which I'll get into that in a second. But B, just really using his team sort of effectively and correctly. And I think, tonight, no OG Anunoby really does strain their ability to play small. OG is really important for that, even though he's on the bench right now. But the Raptors don't have a lot of power forward options, and they really need OG to sort of maintain their spacing while also staying small and switchy. And so no OG today. CJ remains out, although he looks close. When you watch him in the practice videos and stuff, he looks kind of close. But we'll see what happens tomorrow in Atlanta. And obviously Norm remains out with the shoulder thing. He's going to be out for a while. But, the Raptors were short, and so they had to rely on guys like Lorenzo Brown, who came through with 8 points and 2 threes. Again, if anybody hits a 3 on the Raptors, that's a good game for me because this whole team can't shoot. And, you know, the Raptors kind of had to really play some funky lineups. You know, Siakam played a lot with the bench, which I think was a good idea. You know, Kawhi played a lot with the bench. I thought that was a good idea. Like, again, you need to stagger some of those guys into the bench right now just to keep them afloat because of how many injuries the bench is, you know, dealing with. But also, like, you saw, like, some JV and Ibaka minutes. Partially that was because, you know, if Siakam got into foul trouble guarding Aaron Gordon, and, you know, Siakam had 5 fouls early in the fourth quarter, and so the Raptors went very small with Danny Green along with 3 point guards and Lowry, Brown, and I think Van Vliet. And then, you know, they decided, okay, we got to put Ibaka in at 4. And I thought Ibaka actually did pretty well. I think he defended Gordon better than Siakam did. Just because, you know, Gordon, as much as he could shoot the 3, and he did hit 2 threes today, he mostly is an interior player. And he basically relies on, you know, out-muscling dudes. And Ibaka's just straight up bigger than him. And he's not really able to go past Ibaka. I thought Ibaka also did a good job defensively, rebounding the ball in the fourth quarter there with him and Valanciunas. Obviously, this is not a very common look, and I think this is only the second time the Raptors have done it all season, but, you know, it worked, and, you know, you got to credit Nick Nurse for basically playing with the rotation, because, again, it is tough when you have a really short deck, and honestly, it's also tough when you have no wiggle room because you can't hit a 3. Wide open threes, the Raptors just couldn't hit them. And then, yeah, so let's go to the last play. You know, the Magic tied it at 91 all with about 2.4 seconds left. They inbounded the ball to Fournier, and again, I think maybe it was a bit of lack of communication because nobody was there to help, but Danny Green played up really tight against Fournier. Fournier was able to turn the corner, basically drive in for a two-handed dunk. Nobody helped in the rim. Again, communication could be a lot better, and after the game, they talked about needing to improve communication. But still, so tie game, the Raptors got the ball back 2.4 seconds. Nick Nurse calls timeout. There's a lot of jokes being made on Twitter about, oh my God, it's going to be an ISO Kawhi. It is not an ISO Kawhi. In fact, they set up a nice play, right? And I think maybe the short clock scenario really helped, but apparently the Raptors also really worked on this play during practice. That's all they would talk about after the game. Kyle, Danny, you know, Nick Nurse, they all talked about working on this play recently in practice. And it's good. It's good to know that their focus is on late game execution because, again, that kind of came to bite them in the ass, you know, against Detroit and against Boston. But basically set up the play. So Kyle inbounding the ball from the sideline. Danny Green in the opposite corner. You know, Fred VanVleet in the near corner. And then Serge and Kawhi sort of in the elbows, like a horns almost scenario, right? So again, it's visualizing the play. It's probably not the greatest thing. You probably just go watch the highlight. But Fred, you know, cuts, you know, along the baseline, really spaces out one corner. And then Danny Green comes from up top in the corner and then curls around 2 screens, first by Serge, which really, really got him a lot of separation. And then a second sort of lighter screen by Kawhi. And basically, you know, Danny was open along the baseline. And it was a good play for many senses. I think one, like, first off, like, you always catch a guy by surprise if you have someone spanning out that far. And then for him to cut around 2 screens, it is just a lot of opportunities for an experienced shooting guard to be able to lose his man, get separation, and get a good shot. And that's what ultimately happened. And, you know, the Raptors won based on that shot. But if you look at the construct of that play, like, Kawhi was also able to come around a screen by Serge, and he was wide open. So Kyle had 2 options, basically Danny for a short shot on the baseline and Kawhi wide open for 3. And I don't think he could have gone wrong either case. Apparently, Nick Nurse said the first option was to go to Danny. I'm a little bit confused because I would think the first option would be to go to Kawhi because Kawhi was also wide open. But regardless, good execution by the Raptors. It's a clear case of practice, you know, paying off, and they were able to execute and to get the win. And the Magic, you know, had no time left to basically respond, and so the Raptors won on that shot. It was very exciting for sure. I was not expecting that. Again, and I was also praying that this game was not going to overtime because you know, I was already late to playing soccer with Zarar. Shout out Zarar, of course. And yeah, if I gone into overtime, I don't know. I might have not been able to go and, you know, see my boy. But still, regardless, like, the Raptors got the win. It was a good performance defensively. Again, it was really the third quarter defense that really came apart. And I would really say it comes down to communication. Also, partially, like, it's becoming a little bit of a trend where if the Raptors have to defend an action off the ball where someone is curling around a big, that's dangerous. So I'm thinking like Kyrie coming off of a Horford down screen, or like Etuan Moore coming off again, Anthony Davis down screen. Like, and today it was Fournier coming down of Vucevic down screen, where the big man in that scenario is versatile, who can kind of step out for three or sort of roll to the bucket. And then there's a guard who's able to really navigate that screen well, and either has a little short range game like a floater to finish, or can step outside and flare out and go for the three. Like, that's the play where the Raptors have really struggled against, and I've really noticed that. Maybe to a lesser extent against Boston, because I think Kyrie mostly did his damage on the ball, but I think Tatum got a couple of shots that way, and definitely in the Pelicans game, they ran that play to death, and the Raptors couldn't guard it. And same thing here with in the third quarter, the Raptors just really couldn't, stay together on those. I don't think it's really a weakness of their defense. I think part of it is just, when you have a well-executed, curl play, like, you're going to have a slight 2-on-1, and, it's just good play design. And at some point, you just have to kind of hope that the defense will, be steady enough to force a miss. But ultimately, they're going to get a decent shot off in that scenario, depending on the talent. But also, I just think that, like, I don't know. The Raptors have been so good at sort of focusing on the initial pick and roll. And tonight, they were just, I thought they were great defensively tonight. Every time they ran a middle pick and roll with, like, Vucevic or whatever, they snuffed it out. I mean, Vucevic has been balling this season. Let me look up his exact stats one sec. But I mean, he has basically been a light version of Nikola Jokic with his passing, with his playmaking. So, Vucevic has been averaging 20 points per game this year, 11 rebounds, 3.6 assists, shooting 56% and 45% from three. Tonight, the Raptors did a great job of containing him, man. 14 points, got a lot of rebounds, but whatever. That's not a big deal. The Raptors missed a lot of shots, so he's going to get a lot of defensive rebounds. But 14 points on 6 of 12 shooting, 0 of 3 from deep. Like, you're thrilled with the way the Raptors defended Vucevic. You got to credit Ibaka and also JV. JV had a great defensive game today, coming off the bench for 21 minutes. Probably his best of the season, actually. I was really impressed with the way JV was able to be disruptive. But yeah, the Raptors were able to shut down Vucevic, but I think part of that is they're so focused on guarding the big that they kind of let the guards really have their way, and it's a bit of an issue because, there's a couple of dangerous guards that know how to play off a screen in the Eastern Conference, and some of them are better than Vucevic and Fournier. There's a combination called Embiid and Jimmy Butler, and they run a lot of curl plays, or even JJ Redick and Embiid. So I think it's something that the Raptors need to look at a little bit. Maybe just figure out how to balance between sort of shutting down the big versus shutting down the guard. But these are all things that the Raptors, are going to work on. Again, this is a work in progress. All right? I'm very happy first out the progress that the Raptors made with the late game execution. For the fact that they were able to work on that play and then successfully execute it to win the game, it's perfect. That's exactly what you want to see. Again, and there's also like two ways to look at this game. Like, okay, yeah, you probably should do better against the Magic for sure, but the Magic have been tough. Like, they were above 500 coming into this game. But also, like, the Raptors just, like, it's hard to win in the modern NBA when you can't hit open shots. 9 of 34 from three is just, you should lose that game. And so for the Raptors to actually come through and execute and win based on their defense, I'm going to see some of the positives right now because, you got to look at the positives sometimes. Anyway, in terms of the 3 stars for tonight's game, number 1, I'm going to give it to Danny. Give it to Danny. He was really clutch in the fourth quarter. Hit 2 threes. And then obviously the game winner. You hit the game winner, you get the number 1 star. We need to make that a rule on the podcast. All right. So Danny Green, I mean, look, he had 13 points on 5 of 13 shooting, not his best night efficiency wise, and honestly, he kind of got cooked by Fournier a little bit. But again, you hit the game winner. No complaints. You get the first star. Second star, I'm gonna give it to. I mean, it's tough because it's not that many people. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna give it to JV. JV had a really nice defensive game, man. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 4 of 8 shooting off the bench, 0 of 2 from 3. I wish he could start hitting those threes, but I just thought defensively he was great. Like, he really did disrupt a lot of things, and I'm the first one to criticize JV about his defense. And so if he plays well in defense, I gotta be the first one to credit him as well. But yeah, I mean, 2 steals as well. I don't think that really truly captures how impactful he was defensively. I mean, look, the Magic bench is no, great shakes or whatever. Like, aside for some random Jonathan Isaac jumpers, they weren't really doing much. But A lot of that was because JV was shutting down the pick and roll game. Like Simmons was driving into them. Simmons 0 points, 0 of 4 shooting. He's been struggling all year, but definitely struggled today. Bamba really couldn't get off that much. 7 points in 14 minutes, 2 of 3 shooting. Like, you're fine with a backup center scoring 7 points. Jaren Grant 1 for 4. Terrence Ross, our boy, 4 points, 2 of 10 shooting. Thank you, Terrence Ross, still playing for the Raptors tonight. Definitely helping with a 4.1 rebound, 1 assist performance. I've been there with Terrence before. But yeah, JV was solid defensively. So you know what? Second star to JV, and third star, I'll give it to Serge. Yeah, the fact that Serge had 4 assists is giving me life, really. Because that means A, Serge passed the ball 4 times, and B, that he actually made good reads. And 14 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 of 15 shooting, 0 of 3 from deep. I'm a little bit worried about the 3-ball from Ibaka. I don't think he's working on the 3-ball as much this year. Like, anytime you go to practice or whatever, like, he is working on his finishing, and you see it. The progress is definitely there. He's finishing way better than last season. He's shooting like something like 80% on layups and dunks. Last year was like 60. So that's great. You definitely want to see him play more inside. But yeah, I mean, the mid-range jumper is still there. It's just that his 3-ball is not there, and that's part of the issues. The Raptors could probably use a bit more 3-point shooting from their big men. I mean, Kawhi shot 1 of 3, which is not great for him. Pascal 0 for 2. Pascal still had 7 of 11 shooting for 15 points and 9 rebounds and an assist, a steal, a block. That's Pascal. But yeah, you need more shooting from Serge. You maybe need a little bit of shooting from JV, and you just need shooting, man. And you need shooting off the bench, man. Like Fred, I'm worried about Fred, man. I'm really worried about Fred. But yeah. Anyway, in terms of your Gerald Henderson award, that goes to Evan Fournier. 27 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. 11 of 20 shooting, 4 of 9 from 3. The only thing I'll say about Fournier is, first off, I didn't know he was part Algerian, but I guess that's common for a lot of French people to be part Algerian, especially if you watch the World Cup. But also, bro, Evan Fournier, you got to stop fading your hair. You're just balding. Like, that's not a fade. That's nature that's nature putting a fade on your head, man. Just shave that thing, please. Like, it's looking tough. And the weird thing is, because, like, men start losing hair. I start losing hair. It is what it is. But, like, at a certain point, you got to really just put the foot down and be like, I just got to pick it. That's it. And Fournier, man, tough. We're getting cooked by a bald man. It is what it is. But looking like Zidane, actually, fellow Algerian, with that baldness. But good job, Evan Fournier, with that game. Serious. I mean, I've been really impressed by him this season, and I'm really curious to see if he ends up somewhere. Because he would be a decent bench addition for a lot of teams. Like, he would be dangerous on the 76ers, for example. But for the moment, he's in Orlando, which is nice. Stay in Orlando. I'm chill with him in Orlando, but. That's a good pick by Masai, too, by the way. A really good pick back when he was in Denver. Masai picked him. Good call. Fournier's really developed into a nice player. So I think that does for the podcast. As always, read 10 things on Twitter. Listen to the Talking Raptors podcast. Listen to all the podcasts on RR. Read all the RR content. We got so much good stuff these days. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow to recap the Hawks game.